Yeah, there's so many reasons. I mean, the thing that I keep coming back to is, the way we talk about it internally is, the purpose of our people experience is it's an accelerant, and I'm really just stealing this from Jessica's book, so props Jessica, but it's an accelerant for your actual product and your financial product, right? So everything that you're building is in service of that. And I will say, if you're going and you're building, performance management process or system, even if it's as modern as it can be, but it's 5 degrees of separation away from business value that's being created, then you're only ever going to be an admin function. And we're going to get to talking a little bit about more of what we've really transitioned to in our HR team recently. But the further away you are from business value and true employee pain points, you're just building things to build things. And so I think the people as the product and operating agilely allows you to see and understand the business in a different way and be able to execute upon the things that actually make impact and actually help people. And again, the core product being the job that people hire their job to do, helping them to be as effective as possible so they get the most out of it. If they get the most out of it, your product and your delivery to your customers is probably better or will get better. And your financial vehicle and instrument for the company will obviously increase that as well, because the two are highly related. So I think everyone should and has to be operating this way, because if you're stuck in the past, it's going to pass by real quick.
You're listening to the Modern People Leader podcast, where we go behind the scenes with today's top HR leaders and work experts. We talk to them about how they've gotten to where they're at, what they do every day, and what they see coming next for the future of work. Hope you enjoy. Andrew, welcome to the pod. How's your Friday going?
It's going great. How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing all right. It's a beautiful, I don't want to steal my good news stories. So actually, let's go into good news stories. This is how we start every episode. And it could be something personal. It could be something work related, whatever's coming to mind for you. And we'd prefer if you went first.
Yeah, so super excited to be here and get to do this. I've been thinking a lot about this one. I have one personal one, and my daughter, who just turned 5 a couple months ago, we just read our first chapter book to her the other night. And so we've evolved from doing just straight picture books. And I don't know if you guys have done the Magic Treehouse before. I think it's been around for forever. And we read through the entire book in one night, and to watch her excitement as she we finished the book. It's about traveling back in time to meet dinosaurs and then taking it to school the next day and showing all her friends in kindergarten. It was super cool. So yeah, it was I felt like it was a huge achievement for her to be able to comprehend a book that has very limited pictures and rolling through that. And it was just awesome to see her. And she won't stop talking about wanting to go back in time and finding a treehouse to go meet some dinosaurs. So I got some weekend plans to try to figure out how to find a good treehouse that'll go back in time. But that was really, really fun to go through that and do that. We went an hour past her bedtime, but it was definitely worth it. So that's my good news story, is getting to do that with her and getting to see how excited it made her.
That's actually one of the first books that I have vivid memories of reading. Yeah. It was either that or one of the R.L. Stein books.
Goosebumps. Yeah, those are the best. The ones you can travel through time and you could choose your outcome. Yeah, there's 101 Magic Treehouse books, so we got 100 left. So yeah, really excited. That was really fun to watch her just be so in love with the book and dinosaurs. And that's my good news story.
This is all new stuff. So my daughters were born in 2010 and 2012, and it looks like this book came out in 2012. Or is that just this an older book? That was more of a question.
I think it's been around for a while.
Release date, January 7th, 2012. So the closest thing that I had to this was Land Before Time. I don't know if it's at all similar to the TV show. Daniel, do you know what I'm talking about? I made my daughters watch it. Now
I'm on Wikipedia. 1992, and then I think it got republished.
Okay.
Land Before Time, I've heard of that one too.
Okay, that one's a TV show, and that one was
the cartoons with the dinosaurs.
Yeah. So I'll go next. I love that one. That's a great one. That's hard to beat. Mine is pretty simple. My good news is that my wife is back from her business trip, or from all her travels. She took a personal trip, then she took a business trip. And of course, she did this a day after we get our brand new puppy. So the puppy was literally under her watch for a day, and then she was essentially gone for a week. And I have been maintaining this puppy, who is there's just an amazing, cuddly little fluff nugget, but is also her name is Daisy. And
that's adorable.
Her nickname is Crazy Daisy, because she is just she'll go into full send, zoomies mode, and she just goes nuts, and it's doing it all on your own is hard. So I'm just glad that I've got some help on puppy duties now.
Yeah,
Sarah's
it'll be
like,
some
I
good
timed
warm
it
up
out
for you.
perfectly.
Yeah, she was like, by design.
That's awesome. Your puppy's adorable, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
so cute. I feel like all of my good news stories, I think I said this in the last episode too, they've all been Lena related, but like it just feels like every other day there's like a new milestone that's being reached. Like last night, she figured out how to grab her pacifier and like take it out of her mouth and like put it back in her mouth. And like we got her like this little like bouncer. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called a bouncer, where she like stands in there and she's supported, but her feet like aren't really touching the ground. And there's
Yeah.
like buttons and stuff for her to press. And so it's just really fun getting to see her grow up, and feels like every other day there's something new. And yeah, it's great. And then it's 65 degrees, or it was this morning here in Austin. I think the high today was like 88 or 87, which is great for us. And so
You guys survived.
yeah, it's nice to have some fall weather coming our way. So
That's
Andrew,
amazing.
give us the Andrew Golden story. I think it's a really cool story. Yeah, give us all the details, like from where you started to then going back to work for the family business to then going to RetailNext.
Yeah.
Give us the full story. We've had a lot of chief people officers come onto the show, and if there's one thing that they have in common, it's that they run their org their way. I think of people like Crystal Boyson at Sprout Social, who completely rethought performance reviews for her company, ditched long form questions, created 3 clear ratings, which they then can auto calculate into a final rating. I think of Carmel Galvin from Klaviyo, who ditched the generic way of measuring quality of hire and built a custom framework tailored to each team. I think of Jessica Zvan, who tracks LTV to ECAC to evaluate every single manager. Like, these are the exact kinds of people leaders who wish they had a tool like ChartHop. And for those of you who aren't familiar with ChartHop, ChartHop is a flexible PeopleOps platform and HRIS that brings in all of your people and business data into one place. So think, HRIS plus having the ability to bring in data from places like Salesforce. And they let you customize key processes like headcount planning, compensation, performance, and engagement exactly the way that you want it. No rigid templates, no one-size-fits-all playbook, just the flexibility to build the systems that you truly believe in. With ChartHop, you can really run your org your way. If their platform sounds like something that you want to learn more about, I highly recommend that you go request a demo. Just go to charthop.com and make sure to let them know that we sent you.
Yeah, so I'll take it back because it kind of connects into how I really got into all this. But starting even back in high school before I got into college, I had a sibling who dealt with some, mental health, things growing up, had been in and out of, therapeutic boarding schools and all the things that those offer. And so I had this dream, me and my mom, for a long time, that we were going to start like a therapeutic boarding school. So I'd gone into a college studying psychology, thinking that I was going to do this like super cool thing, like, run a therapeutic boarding school, and we'd open somewhere and be able to help, teens that were struggling, and did some internships over some summers. And there's been a lot that's come up of those types of businesses in recent years, but decided that wasn't the right path for me. And I went to the University of Oregon, graduated college. I stuck with psychology, and I had an opportunity when I left school didn't know what I wanted to do. I had just moved down to the San Francisco Bay Area with my wife, who was born and raised down here. And I got an opportunity to do a commission-only job selling pens, tchotchkes, if you want to call them, promotional products to, businesses in the Bay Area. And so this is, 2012. So I'm driving around in my in-laws minivan, walking into like these 5-10 person startups where I open the door and it's a bunch of engineers, probably on seed funding, trying to sell them pens and t-shirts and all of that. And I lasted like 6 months, I think, doing that. Not built to be a salesperson whatsoever, but it was really cool because I got to meet like a lot of different people and different types of companies, and I got to see that side of tech, which was interesting. I didn't know a whole lot about it, coming from Oregon, and decided I was like, okay, cool, I want to try to work at one of these tech companies. and years ago applied for a job to become an internal recruiter. And I started off, it was called BVI Networks at the time. It was a 20-person company. It then turned into RetailNext, but I started off as a contract internal recruiter for the company, helping our head of engineering and head of R&D at the time make some hires and try to save some money by using a fresh college grad to do it. Got really lucky, was using tools like dice.com and some like really old websites back in the day. Somehow hired some people to join RetailNext. And so, month 2, a couple people start showing up because we hired people, and they'd walk in on their first day. And I had never really thought through the concept of like, okay, we give someone an offer, but then like what happens when they show up? So they'd show up and there would be like nothing for them. We'd know they were going to show up, but like wouldn't think about like a laptop or how to introduce them to the company and get their benefits set up and all these little things. So the first couple showed up and it felt weird to me that like that was happening, and talked to my boss at the time and was like, do you care if I try to build something to like make them feel a little bit more welcome? And that turned into like our first iteration of like an onboarding process. And yeah, the role kind of grew and grew from there. And I was with RetailNext for my first run about 12 years, was the head of people for I think 6 or 7 of them. Get to RetailNext here in a minute, but had a really cool opportunity. I'd been at RetailNext for a really long time. My dad owns an accounting firm down in Los Angeles, and had a really cool opportunity to, get to go work with him. And this is the end of 2023. And, I think all of us know the COVID years were really, really long. We transitioned from being an in-office company, fully remote. We hired all these people around the world. Honestly, it's probably a little bit burnt out at the time of just like trying to keep it all together, and the craziness that was the years following that. COVID, everything was locked down. People went through these crazy hiring sprees. Everyone overhired, and we all went back the other way. And so it was a cool opportunity for me to get to go work with my dad. And I also was really interested. A lot of these things, people leaders from everywhere were popping up when they hadn't been from traditional HR. I'd only ever lived in that world, so I thought it was a really cool opportunity to leave, be in something else that wasn't. So I went and joined an accounting firm and tried to help my dad grow and scale that. So for a year, a little bit more than a year, I was there helping from like an operational standpoint of helping from everything from billing. I was doing some bookkeeping for some clients, setting up processes, building tools, but it was really cool to see the world from the other side. I was in the business, executing, being an operator every day. And it was a really great experience. The services industry wasn't really though for me. It was kind of a weird thing working for a company that, we work for a bunch of other companies, but you don't really work for one. You're kind of like spread out between all of these, and kind of lost, touch with missing and being a part of something bigger. And had an opportunity. RetailNext had just gone through a process where we were purchased by a private equity firm called Battery Ventures. Had an opportunity to come back here for kind of the next stage of growth, and, came back to RetailNext at the beginning of this year. And yeah, now I'm Chief People Officer here, and it's been a really exciting journey, and I'm really happy to have been able to come back and go through this next phase with my team.
And before we go, because we're just going to dive right into kind of the continuation of your journey, because that's largely the bodies of work that you and the team have been working on. But before we do that, like if you were, when you meet strangers and they're like, hey, what do you do? Like, how do you explain RetailNext in your business to people that may not be familiar with you?
Yeah. So RetailNext, we are a hardware and software company. So we made our own proprietary hardware device that we install into physical retail stores. And essentially what we're doing is we're helping to collect data about the behavior that, people make as they travel throughout a store. So how many people walk in, where they go when they walk in, what they interact with, what they end up buying, all these different data points. Because, physical retail, I think we've all seen kind of like, there was years when e-commerce was bubbling and everyone thought retail stores were going to disappear. I think retail stores in recent years have made this huge resurgence. And a lot of that is because they become really data driven. So companies like RetailNext, we provide data to help these retailers be able to most effectively run their retail operations. So now with e-commerce, this stiff competition that's there, they have to make the experience great for their customers, as with anything in the world, right? So now when you walk into a retail store, we're helping them to think through of, the moment somebody walks in till the moment they purchase something, how do you make that experience like, unforgettable and make it superior to others? So we provide them with the data to help do that. And it's been really cool because I think working in the retail space, everyone here that works here shops. So we all go into retail stores. We've all had really good experiences and really bad experiences. And it's been really cool to see the evolution of retailers and some really cool retailers building some really cool experiences like the Apples of the world. And there's some other ones I wish I could talk about that we're working with that are upcoming that provide these really cool experiences for their customers. So we help you to make your shopping experience better.
And real quick, just going back to your story, because I'm just curious, like, what's the story behind what brought you back to RetailNext? Was there an open role for that you applied to? Was it the CEO reaching out and saying like, "Hey, Andrew, please come back. We need you"? What's the story there?
Yeah, he was calling, begging me, weekly for 52 weeks until I took the bait. No, as I mentioned, we were going through a private equity deal, and there's a lot that goes into that. There's due diligence, and there's a lot of information that you have to provide. And I'd been in the business for so long, and my role, because I was here for so long, wasn't just HR stuff. There's a lot of corporate governance stuff that I was heavily involved in. So I offered help with some of the due diligence processes going into the deal, and talking to the private equity firm as they were trying to understand our business further. And it just kind of worked. There was just, me and my CEO, we've worked together for cumulatively now 14 years, and we have a great relationship. And there was just a cool opportunity to be able to come back, and we have this huge challenge of scale, and we have these really ambitious goals. And I don't know if there was something formal that happened. It just kind of came together and happened. And I got an opportunity to come back because I'm still involved.
And so you've been back 2 years? Is that what you said?
Coming up on a year. So beginning of
Coming
this
up
year,
on
I
a
came
year,
back.
not even
full
2
time.
years. So this is still, relatively fresh. And so, I know that you've been working through a tremendous amount of change. You have looked in our prep call. I think you mentioned that, when your private equity firm acquired RetailNext, that there were kind of expectations that came with that new private equity ownership. And based on other conversations that you and I have had one-on-one, I know that there were HR tech budget limitations that created, which resulted in you having to be creative when it comes to, your HR tech stack. I want to talk about your team though, so you had worked at RetailNext, so you saw how HR was structured, how it was approached. When you came back into the organization, like, what was your game plan? Was there were there marching orders, to have a new operating model or like operating system within the people team? Or, were you looking to implement something new? Like, just walk us through kind of how you put together that, the team plan for this new role you took on at a company that you'd worked so many years for.
Yeah. So there's a couple layers to this. I would say the primary layer, and something I didn't kind of mention before, is so I left RetailNext at the end of 2023, and I think mid 2023 is when Built for People came out. So Jessica Swan's book, if my memory serves, somewhere like May, June of 2023, somewhere in that time frame. And I think I had it pre-ordered. I think it showed up at my house like the first week of June. And, we started implementing, operating people as a product, the first couple months. And then I'd made the decision, unfortunately, to leave at that time. So we'd started the implementation of it. So like the first thing I did when I came back was restart that process. So like day one, we hopped right back into people as a product. And, I think when I had left, our business had kind of we were already operating kind of like in the Ehrlich model where we have back-end people operations, we have HRBPs that support business units, but we wanted to be able to affect change. And so the very first fundamental change was, how do we operate, rituals around people as a product? And we jumped really deep into that, and it led us to a bunch of really cool outcomes that, 9 months later, we're now fully deep into.
Share a little bit more about those changes that y'all are deep into. What have the last 9 months looked like?
Yeah. So where it first started is, so we came across a group called PX Sapiens, led up by Luco Mahaney, who, if any of you haven't checked out his stuff, it's awesome. And his is kind of a supplement to what Jessica does. So Jessica's book was a lot of the fundamentals of how to think about it, how you structure teams. Luke's kind of spin on it is like lean PX design. So how you design the processes and how you actually operate day to day in running, sort of a lean PX organization as you're trying to operate this product model. So, we jumped right into developing what we wanted our product vision to look like, the operating principles. We started restructuring and putting in processes of how we're going to operate in sprints, and, starting to do prioritization and doing a lot of employee interviewing across the organization. And so we started really heavily in the first quarter of the year, diving really deep into that and really understanding that and educating the rest of our team and gaining expertise in that. And around around that time, so this is end of February of this year, we had a sales kickoff meeting in Portugal. So I got my whole team to go out there. It was a cool opportunity for us to be a part around a large part of our organization. And we were still finding these weird challenges. Like we'd been talking about these things in our team where it felt like there was disconnection between, misalignment between one team operating over here and one team operating over there, even though they had the same goal. They had a different lens. And we went on this trip to Portugal when we had kind of like this light bulb moment. And it kind of restructured the way that we completely operate the team. So I don't know if you want me to go into like that full story right now. I'm happy to kind of talk through and just keep going with that, or if you guys have any specific
Keep
questions.
it going, honestly. Like, I want
first part.
to learn more.
Yeah. So there was one of our HRBPs specifically. So like I'd mentioned before, we were aligned to all the different business units, and we had one HRBP. We have 3 fundamental business units for our organization. And we've always had this challenge of like, again, everything's operated in silos, but the business doesn't fundamentally operate that way. And I think it's the first or second night we're in Portugal. We're having our company loves late night happy hours. So some people from our company were downstairs at the bar, and what I consider probably our top sales guy, who's been at the company for 13, 14 years, like about the same amount of time as me, and the head of like our operational team were at the bar together. And me and my team were, hanging out, talking, connecting, and we kind of heard like a bit of conflict, like not that they were fighting, but they were having a debate over something. So went to go sit over there to hear what they were talking about. And they were having this discussion of, the sales team has this priority to go sell to our customers, and they want to have the best experience for our customers so we can continue to keep them engaged and upsell them in the future and keep them as customers. But then the operational team, because we have a hardware product, their goal is to do things perfectly and quickly, but they don't think as much about like the customer experience side of it. And both of these individuals, the salesperson's paired up with like the top person on the operational team to deliver our product to our customers and get it up and running in the store. But yet they had this huge disagreement on how that person should operate, what they should be paying attention to, what they should think is valuable. And these were a lot of the same conversations me and my team were having, because we could see it from, the 50,000 foot view we had, because we're talking to all the managers and we hear frustrations on one side of the aisle and the other side of the aisle. And it's like, it's the same goal, but like these different teams. And we started having this conversation of like, well, what if the way that we structure this is just wrong? Like having, my team here and my team here, when that's not how a business operates, right? A business operates horizontally. And so it kind of led us to, this huge sort of like change and kind of light bulb moment for us to completely recreate how we operate and we support the business.
And so you shared in our prep a McKinsey article that makes a similar point, that real productivity gains come from rethinking how work gets done, not just reorganizing boxes on a chart. And that's like super interesting way to put kind of this trend of moving away from traditional HR, the Ulrich model, and moving more toward a PeopleOps as a product, PX kind of mindset. And so what I'm hearing is you moved away from that traditional org chart approach, that center of excellence, HRBP model, and now your team, the people team, is embedded within the business workflows. And so walk us through how you distilled down, like if you look at the traditional model, it's usually functionally business alignment. So you have HRBPs for IT, for sales, for client success, for all the major functions. If you're small, they're clustered together, ideally in kind of like functions. But that's generally how that org chart plays out. And so I'm just curious, because for a lot of listeners, this is an interesting concept in theory, but in terms of the practical application, it can be hard to wrap your head around. So would love to get like a behind the scenes view on how you distilled down, like what are our critical business workflows and how are we going to embed how are we aligning our team members? Like specific names, like how did Jane get aligned with this workflow and Bobby with that workflow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And I think, taking a step back and looking at the traditional model, I had always had, I'm just going to be like really honest with you guys, because I feel like as a leader, I've never done a good job. I've just never really known what to do with the HRBP role to make it super effective, because it was always this siloed thing. And what, no matter how, and we'll talk about this more in a couple minutes, we talk about some other stuff, but it always felt like this administrative function because it was siloed in. But yet me as a leader, so-and-so manager would complain to an HRBP sitting here, and then we'd have to have an inner meeting for like that manager to feed that information to another HRBP to then talk to their manager to get a group together. So it always seemed really inefficient. And so like it kind of, as this all came together, made a lot of sense. And at the time, I hadn't, that McKinsey article only came out a couple of weeks ago, which helped to validate the way we're thinking. But the way we thought about it to start was like, if work's happening horizontally, like what are those horizontal like processes, like primary processes that all of these people have to work together to execute, that has like fundamental value creation or one mission. And, I was talking about like this first one. So there's really three that we came up with that we operate our business. I think as time goes on, we may make those more micro, but one of the first ones is, I have terrible names for this, but like our pre-customer workflow. So it's everything from, first lead generation comes in through, for us, the time our product's up and installed into a store. So there's a bunch of different teams that go through that. And what it ended up being is those teams before were in three separate business units, right? We'd have, marketing and sales that are in one, some of our operational teams, and then some back-end teams that have to support the finalization of our installations, all lived in kind of different dispersed units. So we created this one called, our pre-customer workflow. So marketing through our deployment teams, which has, I think, 6 or 7 different, right now there's still departments within our organizational chart. But we signed one of our HRBPs, Sarah, to support, that part of the business. Secondary one we created is what we call kind of our post-customer workflow. So it's the teams that, build new products for our customers, get feedback on how our current products are working through our support team. We have some other ancillary functions that are supporting our existing customer base. And the purpose of that workflow is to, again, continue to better our product, better our operations, better our things, so we can continue to deploy and make our product as best use as possible and support it and ease of use for our customer. First workflow, again, is just getting our product up and running so we can make money. And then the third one, which this HRBP, when we initially structured it this way, supports what we call kind of our transitions in the company. So the idea is we wanted the HRBP supporting the larger workflows to be working with like the top line leaders. So if we needed to make fundamental changes between how one manager here affects another manager here, they could work with those. But there's still all these other kind of, what I call frontline managers that, are ancillary support functions or do some other things that are really still crucial to our business. So we have one HRBP that's just solely responsible for all the transitions. So as new employees come in, as they exit, as we role change people, as we move people across teams, working with all those frontline managers. And then it's a much simpler model of, if she hears things, she either feeds it up to one workflow or another. And all those teams that are connected within there, we're able to solve and, identify, gaps or things that where there might be cause and effect to other parts of the business a lot more simply. So those are sort of our three primary workflows: the pre-customer, the post-customer, and the transition workflow. And that's how we've been operating it now for, I think we're like 6 months into this new model.
Well, congrats. It's a lot of change for 6 months. And so you reorganize around these three workflows. How does EOS play into all of this? Steven and I are huge nerds on EOS. His previous company was run on it for 8-9 years. And we've been running some version of that for Modern People Leader for the last like 2 or 3 years. And so I'm curious what that looks like at a company like RetailNext. And how
for the work you're doing. For our audience that's never heard of EOS, like a high level explanation, I think would be awesome as well.
Yeah.
One of my favorite conversations that we've ever had on the podcast was with Melanie Naranjo. She put something so simply: HR isn't about optimizing for compliance. It's about optimizing for people, for culture, trust, and workplaces where folks actually want to stay. That's why I'm such a fan of what Melanie and her team at Ethena are building. A couple years ago, she summed it up perfectly on the show. Think about all the required stuff in life that isn't fun. Applying for a driver's license, filling out financial aid forms. Now, imagine if those processes were easy, even enjoyable, and you actually learned something from them. That's what Ethena does for compliance training. They take on the tough topics like harassment prevention, workplace violence prevention, code of conduct, and make them actually engaging. Unlike the boring, outdated trainings that frustrate employees and executives alike, Ethena delivers content that's modern and impactful. We're talking 200 plus courses in 100 plus languages with a 93% learner positivity rating to back it up. And for HR, it's just as easy. Training runs on autopilot with automated enrollment and reminders. There's even a built-in hotline and case management system to help create a true speak-up culture. Done right, like with Ethena, compliance is more than a box to check. It's a way to reinforce your values and build a stronger workplace. Go check them out at goethena.com/MPL. That's go, ETHENA.com/MPL.
I had never heard of it before when I was at RetailNext my first time around. So, flashing back to when I was at my dad's accounting firm for the last year, part of like my main primary job was to like figure out how to organize the business so we could grow and scale it, right? Because that was kind of his primary objective. And so EOS is Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so it's can't remember the name of maybe you guys remember the guy that created it, but it's basically Traction. Yeah, thank you.
Traction is a book.
Yeah, Traction's a book, which again, I think for anyone that's just like a pure business operator, even if you work in tech, like it has just so many, fundamental lessons. But essentially what EOS does is it creates a simple operating system that has 6 tenets that encompass the things that you need to put in place of, how to goal set, how to solve big problems, how to, set process and systems and things like that. So it has these 6 tenets. And I think there's thousands of businesses around the world that use it. People get certified in EOS and you can go to like seminars where it's all these like small businesses and they all run off of the same thing. And you have this, like, it's this 2-pager that's like your short-term goals, your long-term goals. And it's just, it's a way for businesses to use, a structure and a system to help them to move their business forward. And one of the tenets within that, again, we were implementing this at the accounting firm, is I believe they call it core processes. So within your business, you have like 4 or 5 fundamental core processes, and those are, again, deliverable outcomes that you provide to your customers. And I think the only reason that this idea clicked for me is because I had been, I read Traction, I'd watched, there's a ton of videos, I signed up for their like online community, kind of like I do with you guys. I watch all the content they put out, and I talked to other people that were doing it, and we were starting to implement that. In an accounting firm, it's a lot more simplistic. Like you do people's taxes or you do their back office work. And so you can create these really easy processes. And it kind of clicked to me that like, maybe it's not as complicated as it seems for a tech company, right? Like there's one end value you're trying to provide for, the customer. And, we were at the time also doing this, people as a product, and the core product. And I think we'll talk about this more in a little bit. The core product is, for us, at least the way we define it, it's, somebody comes in, they start working at RetailNext, or they have a job and they hire that job to do something for them. So our purpose is to make that job as best as we can for them, the tools, the systems, whatever, everything that they use. And so if our goal of the people as a product is to make their job better, then we can support these business processes in the best way possible to, help them to be as effective as possible. And if these workflows work well, they can execute, they can grow and achieve all the things that they want to through that. So I think, the EOS and people as a product actually married up really, really well in the way that we were thinking about and the way we wanted to operate our business. So, it opened it up, it kind of clicked for us, and it allowed us to really become, what I consider kind of like the new strategic HR business partner. And like I've more so even in the last couple months, I think for years, like the last probably 10 years, right? I think everyone's heard HR needs to become more strategic. You need to learn about the business and the numbers. And, I think all that stuff's extremely important. Everybody absolutely has to. But I think strategy really falls short at, if you're still going to be working within your business and you're going to be, as an HR person, helping identify problems and figure out pain points that get in the way of people doing their job every day. And you as an HR person just goes, you have all these problems, I'll follow up with you next month when we do our HRBP sync again. You're never going to be seen as that strategic. You're always going to be, just an admin function to helping them. But I really see the new strategic being the more important thing is becoming operationally relevant in the organization. And I think by allowing us to align to the business this way, we can be operationally relevant and helping them where they're actually doing work, not just, we're going to build a performance process out here that doesn't really help to make necessarily their people product that much better if they're having troubles within the workflow.
Oh my God. I'm immediately, you're the first person to make this connection between EOS and Built for People that I've talked to. Like this was not even on my radar. And Daniel knows how obsessed I've been with both EOS and with BFP at different points in my life. So like, I'm gonna, as soon as I finish, the book I'm reading, I'm gonna go back to EOS or go back to Traction, Retraction, and go back to Built for People. Because once you like, there's so many possibilities now that you've made that connection for me. And so that's amazing. I guess for the HR leader, we need to move on because we want to ask a couple more questions. But for the HR, for the skeptic that, isn't sold on PeopleOps as a product, Agile HR, PX, whatever you want to call it, like you're pretty far into this experiment. I think a lot of companies now have also experimented with this approach. I'm still like waiting for someone to walk me through this horror show case study where things went horribly wrong, because that has not been the case in anyone that I've talked to. Like, is it perfect? No. Are there areas for improvement? Yes. Is there still innovation that needs to be done and some problems that need to be figured out? Absolutely. And so I'm curious from your perspective, Andrew, like for the naysayers or the skeptics, what would you say to those people? What would your argument back be for why this should be pursued or at least explored by a modern people leader?
Yeah, there's so many reasons. I mean, the thing that I keep coming back to is, the way we talk about it internally is, the purpose of our people experience is it's an accelerant, like, and I'm really just stealing this from Jessica's book, so props Jessica, but it's an accelerant for your actual product and your financial product, right? So everything that you're building is in service of that. And I will say, if you're going and you're building, performance management process or system, even if it's as modern as it can be, but it's 5 degrees of separation away from like business value that's being created, then you're only ever going to be an admin function. And we're going to get to talking a little bit about more of what we've really transitioned to in our HR team recently. But the further away you are from business value and true employee pain points, you're just building things to build things. And so I think the people as the product and operating agilely allows you to see and understand the business in a different way and be able to execute upon the things that like actually make impact and actually help people. And again, the core product being like the job that people hire their job to do, helping them to be as effective as possible so they get the most out of it. And if they get the most out of it, your product and your delivery to your customers is probably better or will get better. And your financial vehicle and instrument for the company will obviously increase with that as well, because the two are highly related. So I think everyone should and has to be operating this way, because again, if you're stuck in the past, it's going to pass by real quick.
And so I want to connect this thread with what we're about to talk about. So we know you've built some amazing homegrown AI tools for RetailNext for the people team. And I know other teams are experimenting as well. From a PeopleOps as a product lens, talk us through the process of deciding, like, first, I'm going to build an employee engagement platform with, I can't remember which tool you used, but you used one of the vibe coding tools. Like, I'm going to vibe code an employee engagement platform. And then from there, like, take us step by step how you applied PeopleOps as a product to that process.
Yeah. So quick shout out to How I Built It. Really cool podcast. Everybody should check out a newsletter for Stevens, where we talked about, the engagement tool that I built. But so I think, connecting and marrying the two together, I mean, they're highly related, right? So if you're looking at your people experience, you have the different aspects of your people experience and the ways that you deliver that, the ways that you understand the different things that you do and deliver to support, the experience and the actual product that you have. And so when we're looking at, AI solutions or AI tools, I think the first thing that we always have to figure out, and this is getting more into sort of like lean design, what is like the thing that, like, the most minimal thing that we can build that can maybe affect the change or the pain point or the hypothesis that we're making about a certain point or area of the business, right? And so I think, the issue has always been with tooling and software systems. It's $20,000-$30,000 investment and a 6-month implementation. And I think where AI has really changed things is you can go into Claude this afternoon, and if you have a quick idea, you can go and ask Claude to build you an artifact in 3 minutes, and you could go send it to your employee and be like, what do you think about this? and that feedback loop happens in, an hour versus like 6 months, and you can just start getting closer to the things and the pain points that your team and your people are going through, and being able to solve for that bigger. And I think the employee experience tool that I built, I think, was more based off of the need of how can I understand my employees more quickly, and how can I understand nuanced things that I want to understand about my employees better and do it in a different way. And I used a tool called Replit to build that. And yeah, I just think AI is completely, and I think it's just completely changed the software game. I will tell an anecdote. Hopefully they're not listening, but I work with a certain HRIS provider, may or may not be called Hi Bob, and my renewal came up, and they're trying to sell me a compensation solution for, I think, who was it that came on last couple of weeks from Vercel was having like the same sort of conversation with Pave. It's like they're trying to charge me, I think it was like $15,000 for a comp tool I'm going to use once a year. And I'm like, okay, guys, I get it, but like you're charging me per employee per month for a tool I'm going to use, once a year. Like the models don't line up. And now I think people have the freedom and ability to do that, and you can do that quickly within your people as a product framework to understand the needs and start to feed those needs as quickly as possible to get to the right thing and whatever that right solution ends up being for your employees.
I can't underscore this enough for the listeners. What Andrew built, using vibe coding tools and literally his time, I was completely blown away, Andrew, because as an engagement survey startup CEO, some of the features in there, and Daniel knows this, he said in our product prioritization meetings, they were like quarterly rocks that took, these were epics that took multiple quarters to get through. Some of the things we never even got done. And you literally built, this end-to-end system in 2 weeks. And, I think I share your bullish view. I think our regular listeners probably know that, but this notion that we've been limited to what the SaaS providers offered, which is essentially what 80% of the companies, out there need. And then a bunch of random things that they built for, key accounts that they wanted to win. And that we're forced to use that and somehow right size that and scale it to our business when, you can have something, that will scale to your organization specifically, fully customized, scale to your organization, embedded in your workflows. You can have process checkpoints where your HR team, is getting information. There's like agentic workflows that you can now leverage. It truly is the emergence of what I believe is a fundamentally new way of running people teams between the tech stack, the operating model, the BFP operating model, this now EOS operating system that you can layer on top. I really do think this is a super exciting time to be in HR, but I don't feel like that's the general consensus on LinkedIn. At least on LinkedIn, it's definitely not the general consensus when we talk to HR leaders on and off the record. And so I'm curious, Andrew, being someone who's on the other side of all of this change, as I mentioned, it doesn't feel super optimistic. Why should people leaders be optimistic and I guess have positive views when it comes to like what's coming down the pipeline for the people teams in the future?
Yeah, the reason why I'm optimistic is we can now get involved with and solve problems that I think we were limited by before. And I think, the combination of AI and the ways that we can now restructure our teams and our work and the way that we operate, I think strategic's going to look different for us going forward. And I think, the way I keep putting it to my team is we want to really be kind of, operationally relevant in the organization and help to move the business forward and use things as a product with a product manager lens to improve how people work, how they grow. And we now can follow through with that. I think before we were handicapped by, technical capabilities, or we were handicapped by the old school way of thinking about things, but this is a new frontier. And, I think this is the first time everybody's open to change. And I think with AI, not just the technical side of it, but just people purely rethinking work, it's a really, really exciting time to be able to jump right in the middle of that and have a real kind of spark for change, and that everybody's excited about and everybody's sort of on board to move forward, and we can be at the middle of that. So I think there's a lot of reason for optimism in the people teams and people space.
And so before we move to rapid fire questions, I'm curious, who's actually building all of these tools on the people team? Is it a combination of people from the people team with the help of an engineer? Is it purely the people team? Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, so it started with just I was building stuff. We had a couple of other people building, things here and there. And I think tools is now a very loose term because you can stand up an artifact on Claude in, 5 minutes. So, people from my team are doing it. We've started now to introduce it further throughout the company. So there's, for the people team, it's us, it's IT. We also have IT as a part of our little umbrella, which makes it really nice. But across the org too, we now have, operators everywhere that are building things for their teams daily and finding unique and cool solutions of things that help their team in the flow of work. And yeah, so all of us are builders, but we build specifically for our team. And you don't need to be technical to do it. So, or overly technical.
And you just glazed over something that's, it's been super active in my LinkedIn feed and somewhat controversial. And that is kind of the role of HR and IT. Like, what's your prediction? Are we going to see, and I know that there's a bias to your current operating model, but I'm just curious, why, and I'll state it that you are, I think, in the camp that feels like there are a lot of benefits and synergies from IT and HR being kind of grouped together. And so, like, do you think this is just a cool experiment, or do you think that this really has legs and we're going to see more and more organizations do this?
I think more and more organizations have to do it, right? And I think the easy answer was, a couple of years ago, that it makes sense for both being close together because we're both delivering and, helping end users and their customers or our customers. So it's kind of the same thing as we're thinking about it from a product lens. But as you think about the future and you look forward, HR has always owned real estate, right? That's been part of my job in the past, going and buying offices around the world. And a lot of companies have stopped doing that and they're going fully remote. And I view the new real estate as you open your laptop every day and you log in, and like the tools and systems and things that you use, that's our new real estate, and IT owns that. And I think IT and HR working together, and especially as we think about it from a product lens and we're thinking about it from the experience of, an employee opens their laptop every day and how can they go and get the thing done that they're trying to get out of their job. Both of us are crucially fundamental and highly intertwined in doing that. So I honestly can't imagine how like HR teams don't have that. Hopefully you're getting the opportunity to work with them, but it has to be the future. And especially as we get more and more digital and more working in the virtual world, it has to be, right? So I think there's just a lot of opportunity, and I think the opportunities are endless of just things that you can really build together and do and really supercharge each other.
I feel like we need like a 2 or 3 hour, like very long form episode with you one day, because there's so much that we weren't able to cover. Like we weren't able to go too deep on the feedback platform you were able to build. So if you're listening to this and you want the deep dive, there's a place to find that. Steven, what should I plug? Is it Weretonomics? Just go to weretonomics.com.
Yeah, Weretonomics, and you can get to the Field Notes newsletter, which is part of my Weretonomics content side. And thank you for I'm humbled for the plug, Andrew and Daniel. It was just like a side thing that, as you all have heard me talk about on this show, like I do feel this is once in a generation stuff. And I've been in HR for 25 years, and in the flesh, or the digital representation of flesh, Andrew has like walked us through like real life, how he's implemented these things that I once had a dream this would be possible. And I think we have a real problem that not enough people leaders are leaning into it. It's not as scary as you think once you jump in. And so these tools are out there. How I built it, Field Notes, it's really for the modern people leaders and helping them guide them through these changes, because it can be a lot.
It can be. All right.
So weretonomics.com, and you'll find everything that Andrew was talking about.
So rapid fire questions. You listen to the show, Andrew, so you're familiar with the tradition. We ask the same questions to everybody, and I know we're super over on time, so we'll try to go fast. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to somebody starting in HR today?
Question everything.
Love that. And it's not surprising. Next question. If your team gave you a superpower nickname, what would it be?
Detailed Jones. Maybe something like that. We jump way in the weeds sometimes, so I don't know what the best nickname for that is, but it's the best one I can come up with now.
I'm picturing like the Indiana Jones hat with like, what does he have? Like the big whip?
Yeah. I'm a little bit nicer than that, but yeah. I like to think.
If you could steal one strategy from another company, what would it be?
Oh, that is such a good question. I think just because it's fresh. Yesterday, Zapier at ZapCon, and everything Brandon's doing just in terms of how they're thinking about, solving people problems and I can't remember her name. I think it's Emily. They just introduced their first like AI engineer on the HR team, and just everything in the way Zapier thinks about problems and the way that they're trying to instill and create enablement around how to use AI and how to grow that. Everything they're doing is everyone's now seen, I think, the competency chart that they came up with for AI usage and just everything that they're doing to enable it and grow it. And I think between Brandon and their CEO, Wade, there's some really cool webinars they've done recently on how they've attacked that. And I highly recommend people check that out. It's really cool about how they're trying to solve problems.
How was ZapCon, by the way? I couldn't join it. It was good. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at all watch the recording.
I hope they release the recordings. There were some cool ones. I mean, they had all the typical HR sessions and Zapier showed specifically, but then they had these like live battles they did where they like chose a thesis and all these different, like I think some of them were Zapier people, some of others, and get to see how people like build stuff. And it's really, really cool. And Zapier is also not that hard to learn. Like I've started using it a lot more recently, and they have a embedded tool that you tell it exactly what you want to build. It'll start building out the Zap for you. So I guess plug for Zapier, but definitely check that out. It does a lot of possibilities are endless.
We've had Brandon and Wade on the show, so happy to plug the great work they're doing. So the last question, if we could spotlight a real innovator in HR and bring them on the show, like who should we bring on next?
I can't remember. Have you guys had Luke? I talked about Luke earlier in the episode, Luke O'Mahaney. If you haven't had him, highly, highly recommend. I took his class and, I've been in contact with him, but I think he takes a different approach and he's more focused on like the actual application of how you do PX as a product. So not the philosophical, but the execution part. And it kind of comes from like Lean Startup, and for those of you that are familiar with that book, and he does that. So if you guys haven't had him yet, I would highly recommend bringing.
Shame on us for not having Luke on yet. Luke is somebody that I try to meet with like at least twice a year because there's so many similarities between our two businesses, but we have not had him on. And we keep saying we're going to have him on, and then I forget to reach out. So I'm adding it to my daily stand-up for tomorrow, or to my rocks.
And he's a homie. Okay. You guys have met. Daniel and him have a standing in our async side talk that Daniel and I worked through. I was like, have we had him on? Like, it feels like we should have already had him on.
Yeah, I couldn't remember, but him, or also, I don't know if you guys have had Dart Lindsley on, or if you've been on his or heard of his podcast, Work for Humans, I think is exactly what it's called. But he's like really kind of forward thinking. He was in People at Google for a long time, and a lot of these people as a product. There's an episode with him and Jessica that's really cool too, for those of you that want to check that out. So those two guys I listen to a lot. It's a lot of more philosophical, but all along lines of people as a product. So
yeah, we definitely have to have. I mean, I feel like just for our MPL Build episodes, we could have them both on with Jesse.
Yeah.
Easy.
Him and Jesse, really quick on their episode, him and Jesse do a whole debate on ELTV to CAC, and it gets really technical because, Jesse and the way they go back and forth and how they're talking about it, it's really cool to just hear them and the way that they're thinking about it from like how HR connects to the finances of a business and thinking about revenue. And it's really, really cool. Just to hear two people like that go back and forth. So highly recommend.
All right. So one word or phrase close. What's coming to mind for you right now?
The biggest thing that's coming in mind is having an operational mindset. I challenge everybody, stop trying to be a consultant and go get in the business and sit side by side and build things and fix things with people.
I've got two acronyms. I've got EOS and BFP because I can't believe I didn't make this connection already. So that's what I'm going with.
I'm going to say AI is the new real estate.
Ooh.
That one's going to stick with me. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Andrew, for me, this is like double the pleasure, double the fun. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an amazing conversation. And I just feel like this is the first of many conversations we're going to have with you on the podcast. So thanks so much for sharing the great work you're doing, and you and the team are doing it at RetailNext.
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for having me. This has been such a cool experience, and getting to be on the other side of this is amazing. So thank you both.
Have a good weekend,
y'all.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. and connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to know what you think about the show, and you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.